Earlier, Jen mentioned that tomorrow will mark that 1-year anniversary of the date that we first started talking about COVID-19 in our community. This morning, let's take a look back at some of the biggest moments we've seen locally.
We're talking about the patients that are here in town receiving care from our local doctors.
The risk to the general community about this particular process is zero.
This special area inside of Sacred Heart has rooms that are specifically designed for airborne infections like the coronavirus.
The hospital told us yesterday the Department of Health and Human Services requested that these 4 patients be brought to Spokane.
The first 2 of the patients arrived just before noon yesterday, and then the last 2, making it 4 total, got in around 4 p.m.
Patients who are in our facilities now can feel safe. Being prepared is a much better opportunity for us to care for our community competently and carefully.
This is Washington's Stay Home, Stay Healthy order.
Washington's stay-at-home orders go into full effect tonight.
We have a bipartisan agreement on the largest rescue package in American history.
It just doesn't feel real, and I think a lot of us are, in shock.
We've got businesses right now that are barely making it at 50% capacity. I can't imagine if they had to close their doors. I don't want to see that happen.
In a decision effective today, Dr. Bob Lutz is no longer serving as the Spokane Regional Health District Officer.
Inaction here is not an option. We have to take bold, decisive action, and we are doing that today.
It's preposterous to think that a restaurant can survive only on takeout and outdoor dining.
Today is a landmark day in our country in the battle against COVID-19. An FDA advisory panel will vote today whether to recommend emergency use authorization for Pfizer's vaccine.
This is one of the greatest scientific accomplishments in history.
Health leaders are warning us that the darkest days of COVID-19 might still lie ahead. As you can see behind us, the Spokane Arena now fully transformed into this mass vaccination site that will open within the hours.
And today, health leaders hope to vaccinate up to 500 people.
And that brings us to today. Jen, what moment really stands out to you over the past year?
I don't know if it's a single moment, but our photojournalist Al Lozano behind the camera here with me, we were just talking about how we were both out here 1 year ago today. And the next year seemed really daunting when we were talking about closures and shutdowns and everything like that. But also it seems at the same time the past year flew by.
Yeah.
What about you?
Honestly, I think back to March of last year, which was the last time that our entire team was all basically within the same room. And even then, we had no idea what was going to happen over the next few months, how long it would stretch out. But of course, live when we arrived at the Spokane Arena, that's one of the many things. But of course, so many memories over the past year to look back on.
Yeah, and of course, as you mentioned, we were at the Spokane Arena about 3 weeks ago at the opening of the mass vaccination clinic here in Spokane. Well, since then, experts have administered about 11,000 vaccine doses, and that's just at the arena. However, the Washington State Department of Health says the state does not know when the eligibility will expand to include more age groups and people living with underlying conditions. Even with the promise from President Biden, there will be enough vaccines for every American by July. Right now, the DOH says it's trying to make sure its limited COVID vaccine supply is reaching the state's most vulnerable patients. And many of the vaccines meant for next week's appointments have been impacted by the weather. Of course, we're seeing the winter storm across much of the lower 48, including here in Washington, and that's delaying some of the shipments of those vaccine doses. And of course, people are still in need of help. The president's administration continues to push for a $1.9 trillion COVID relief package, and the House of Representatives will likely vote on that next week. Then that will head to the Senate. Democrats want to approve it before some of the benefits from the first round of the pandemic aid expires on March 14th. Of course, here we are a year into the pandemic, and today we're talking about the return of some of our favorite events, some that we missed out on in the past year. A Spokane favorite, Pig Out in the Park, has announced that it is coming back. That's coming up on September 1st through the 6th. Spokane foodies, of course, love that. If you love fair food, anything fried, always good news. Hoop Fest is also coming back in September. That's set for September 11th and 12th. And the Spokane Interstate Fair is also coming back in September 10th through the 19th. So a lot going on in those first 2 weeks of September. Cougs, and Eag fans, you may like this news. There is an inkling that we might be able to see fans in the stands come this fall. Of course, those decisions, though, will come later this year. And the 80s Classic could get an encore. The Spokane Public School Board may hold the Monsters of Rock concert at Joe Albee Stadium. They're expected to make a decision about that coming up next month. However, with all these plans in place, experts say most events will need to have some sort of social distancing guidelines. But of course, Joshua, we've gotten used to that over the past year. We know what social distancing looks like. And you know what? Social distancing is probably a term a lot of people hadn't heard before the start of the pandemic, but now we know all too well. But the good news is a lot of things look like they're trying to make a comeback late summer, early fall.
Yeah, you said it, Jen, that month of September looking very, very good right now. And of course, we will continue tracking everything that comes between now and then, following all the latest news as we have done for you all year here on Up with Crab.